seasonally appropriate. Today's video, every single modification that I've made in the last year to the Husqvarna 701 Enduro to get it to a point where it is now almost, for me, off-road, shooting video, taking photos, perfect. Christmas project, some sort of intro. Got big plans, gonna have a drone shot flying out the garage. It's gonna be very, very cool, if I get around to it. Okay, quick bit of history. Bought the 701 at the beginning of the year, same time as we bought Jen's CRF 250L from Honda. Both bikes have been absolutely perfect for what we wanted them for. We took them off to the Pyrenees, did lots of these modifications before then, and since we've got back, we've just carried on tweaking them and got them to the point they're at now. And they're both absolutely brilliant. Love them both. Going to go through everything that we've done to this bike now that I've added on. Not really going to talk about the bike itself. It's very, very good. There's lots of videos on that already. Just the modifications today. Okay, starting up front with the easiest modification. Run a Wolfman bag on the front fender, carries a spare front inner tube. Very simple. Most complicated modification, the forks. The only thing on the bike that I didn't do myself, just had them completed yesterday. I was finding that when I was riding off-road, they were really harsh, and it's a really common criticism on this bike with these forks. All over the internet forums, people moaning about them. Things have been done to the internals on these by RG3 Suspension. I'll put a link to them below. I have no idea yet how well it's going to ride. Haven't ridden it properly other than riding it back from the workshop. I explained exactly what my problem was, and the guy there, Lee, seemed to know exactly what I was saying and sounded very confident and did things to them. In fact, he even gave me a list of settings, none of which I really understand, but it does seem to suggest that he has an idea what he's doing. There's new springs inside, the valving's been done. That's about as complicated as I can get with that one. Okay, so I do understand. Tyres. Fitted these myself. Motors Extreme Hybrids, love them. I run them on the CRF as well. They are a bit noisy on the road and a bit wobbly on the road, but we're not on the road that often. Off-road, they've been amazing. We've ridden these in snow, mud, dirt, hard pack, loose, wet, everything, and they've been superb. So really, really impressed with those. And almost more importantly, inside these, we are running the tubeless system. The tubeless has been, now that we've finally got it dialed in, absolutely faultless. The tyre pressures remain rock solid. People often complain about having to constantly adjust them, but since we added Stan's sealant to these, they've been brilliant. Bike often goes a couple of weeks without being touched. Tyre pressures hold steady all the time. If you don't know how the tubeless system works, really worthwhile looking into it, because for off-road riding, it's way better than fixing punches. Okay, so got full metal radiator guard and an improved adventure spec sump guard, way better than the standard fitted sump guard. Gives lots more protection around the side of the bike. Also loads of holes and gaps in it, which is really useful for washing it out afterwards, because mud does collect inside there otherwise. Triple clamp engine case covers on both sides. Not really had a chance to test these yet in anything too rough, but they look an awful lot more protective than what I had on there previously, which were just small metal stick-on discs pretty much that offered some protection, but no way near as much as these things seem to. I've also got one of my many GoPro mounts up here. This is the one that I use with a long pole on the side to get shots of the wheels low to the ground when I'm riding along with the GoPro, just for an extra angle. Moving back, replacement gear shift lever from Hammerhead in the States and replacement protector from the chain going. It's also blue. Improved pegs. These are from Bosley. Again, I'll stick a link down below. They're also set further back and lower down. I'm about 6'6". These are way, way better and a lot wider as well for your foot. A new addition, a much wider foot plate. So when the bike's put down on gravel or soft ground, it doesn't sink into the mud and tip over. Bobbins for paddock stand. I used to use a motocross stand underneath the sump guard to lift the bike up in the air, but find this just far easier to use. It's much easier to put in place. The bike feels an awful lot more stable on it as well. Okay, down on the other side of the bike, not an awful lot going on that's vastly different to this side. As you can see, the Bosley pegs, the replacement rear brake pedal, and those triple clamp engine case covers again. Seat concept seat. The bike rides about an inch higher in the saddle with the seat concept seat. This is not a complete version. I bought the padding and the cover and fitted it myself. Relatively straightforward. You just staple it in from underneath. The stapling that you need needs to be done with a proper electric or pneumatic staple gun. Don't try and steal one from your office because it won't go into the plastic on the seats. Underneath here, oh, and also before I forget, have the ABS dongle under here so that the ABS on this bike now runs as standard with the front working all the time and the rear never working, which is how I like to ride off-road, especially on steep descents. So, ABS dongle and new battery as well. Okay, so this is an anti-gravity lithium battery, which is quite cool in itself. It weighs about half what the standard battery weighs, but in addition to that, it's also got a restart function. Very simply, if the battery on this bike goes flat, you can push the button on the top of the battery here and it will give you access to a little bit of reserve power. Just enough power to get you going again. So very clever. The battery goes flat on this bike. Hasn't happened on this, but it did happen on Jenna's. She's got the same battery on her bike. Normally you're stuck completely. You push the button on the top of the battery and it gives you access to a small amount of charge that it has retained before shutting itself down. Very, very clever. Okay, up front. Okay, so first of all we have Barkbuster handguards, which are a huge improvement over the standard things, which are pretty useless. Shorter and bend both ways levers on both sides, and they're blue, which is not hugely important but quite nice. Heated grips from Oxford. The controller mounted up here. Very, very simple setup because with these they have power permanently, but they detect when the bike isn't running and they shut themselves down. The mirrors are mounted on both sides using ram mounts and then almost indestructible mirrors on top of those. The advantage of that is obviously you can fold them out the way if you need to. If they get bashed, they pretty much can't break. I also run in there my GoPro, in fact. Like that. So GoPro gimbal mounts in the ram mount socket perfectly. Moving along, I've got a port for 12-volt socket, which I use for my tyre air compressor, and twin USB ports, which I use for charging up anything that runs on USB. This GoPro socket here is used to hold the additional battery for the gimbal if I need it. In fact, so additional battery just mounts up in there and sits on here and provides the gimbal with extra power. Although I can also run the gimbal straight through to the USB port here, so it's not an essential bit of kit, but handy to have it somewhere stored if I need it. Garmin Montana SatNav, again mounted on another ram mount, and back to the Oxford grip on the other side. And moving to the back of the bike, raised filler cap. The standard filler cap here leaves a real easy entry point here for muck to get inside the fuel tank. This one raised up, obviously blue. Haven't done anything with the huge rear fender. Loads of people chop this off and that does make it look an awful lot better from the back. It does look a bit clunky as standard. The trouble is, every time I come back from a ride, this thing is absolutely filthy underneath here. Because Jen is normally following me when we ride, I would rather have that muck stay here. She's a new rider and has enough to deal with staying on her bike without me covering her in crap at the same time. So for the time being, the rear fender is staying as it is. Deep inside there is a uprated spring. With my weight on the bike, I weigh about 220 pounds, and I'm always carrying gear as well. I think a 70 kilogram rider, 70 kilograms? Yeah, that's about right. 70 kilogram rider with no gear, that's what the bike's modelled on. I'm about 30 kilograms heavier than that, plus gear. I'm always carrying gear on this bike. We're always travelling, camping, packing lots of stuff. So, upgraded rear spring. And do you know what? I think that's about it, apart from the luggage. Luggage. Okay, so these luggage mounts on the side here are brand new. They have been fitted today, not ridden with them. Had to go with a slightly modified rear rack to what I was running before in order to get these to work together. So this is all new on the back here. The reason I have it is that we run Moto Moscow bags and love their gear, but on this one I was running a Reckless 80 and we found that it was coming in underneath. I've got some photographs actually where you can see the bags coming in close to the rear wheel, to the point where at one stage the rear bag on the right hand side, which is closer because the exhaust isn't pushing it away from the bike, was even contacting the rear tyre. Or a small hole in it, rather annoyingly. So hopefully these luggage racks are going to keep the gear out to the sides a bit more. As I say, I run a Reckless 80, Jen runs a Reckless 40 on her bike, unless we're going out for a single day, in which case she doesn't run any gear on her bike, and I run the 40 on here. We're off on Tuesday, 2 days time, to Wales for a day's riding, so I'm going to be running the 40 for that, so I'm going to fit that now to see how that works with these bars. Oh, and up front, Wolfman tank bag. It's brilliant. It holds my drone perfectly. I use a Mavic Air when I'm out and about and it all fits in there great, so no problems with it whatsoever. But it's going because Moto Moscow do a tank bag that is awesome. Saw it at the motorcycle show this year. Has loads of cool compartments, and you can run a water bladder inside it as well for fluids, a hydration bladder. Looks very, very cool. Unfortunately, shipping from the States is ridiculously expensive, so I'm going to wait for their European base to open soon. Right, Reckless 40 on the back. Do you know what? At first glance, it's almost too wide for the 40 to fit on. The 40 is their smaller version. The 80 looks like it would fit better. It looks like it would come down the sides a bit better. But the 80 is stored up there, and I can't even bother to go up in the loft to get them down. Okay, pretty happy with that actually. I can also use these straps here that on these Moscow bags I never quite understood what they were for, but I can hook these down onto the frame and it just stops the bag from bouncing up and down. Sometimes over really rocky terrain I could feel the bags on the back flapping up and down slightly. They're going nowhere. Very happy with that, and I imagine if I have the 80 on here as well, which will come further down and really attach properly to these, be a huge improvement. These bars are also really handy for just getting hold of the bike and pulling it out of things. I got the bike stuck in a snowdrift at one point earlier this year. Something like this would have been just brilliant to hold on to. These are on here really, really substantially. Very, very happy with that. Not going to talk too much about the Moscow bags, other than to say I absolutely love them. Just as a quick summary, with the 40, when we're doing a day trip, on one side I run my tool roll, small compressor to pump the tyres up, little pouch on the front. I carry tools that I might need quicker access to, like a tyre pressure gauge, some duct tape and stuff like that. On the other side, spare rear tyre, multi-tool, whatever we need for the day. So on Tuesday it's just going to be food, waterproofs, that's pretty much it. Under here, if you see my video on camera gear, this is where I pack all my camera equipment. The DSLR goes under here, spare lenses, basically any equipment I need comes in this section here, and then straps down. And if we need it, these small pouches underneath here on either side are used for carrying, well, typically fuel. These little guys, obviously they don't carry much, but they carry enough to get us out of trouble if we get into it. And that's pretty much it for the bike. The bike is pretty much exactly where I want it to be. Okay, that's not actually quite it, because I did my trip to Wales yesterday, so let me just update you on a couple of bits and pieces. First of all, the forks. Lee at RG3 Suspension absolutely knows what he's doing. They were hugely improved over standard. Previously, on the sort of rocky terrain that we were on yesterday, the bars would have been pretty much ripped out of my hands on some sections. No problems at all though. The triple clamp engine case covers were brilliant. The good thing about the 701 is it's really narrow compared to something like a big adventure bike, like a GS or something. There were a few sections where I was riding the bike down, big rocky sections on either side. I could feel them banging against the pegs, banging against my feet. Completely confident that the engine covers were protecting the engine, so that was brilliant. And the luggage racks did exactly what they're supposed to, held my gear, rock solid, no problems with it at all. On the very rare occasion that I fell off, I was able to pick the bike back up, holding on to them for support. So that is it. In general, completely happy with the bike now. There's nothing else I'm really going to need to add, unless you think there is, in which case add in the comments. Always interested to read what people think I should be putting on the bike. Subscribe, like, more videos coming up, including the trip from yesterday, which was brilliant, so check back for that soon.